Shalom and welcome to GPS for the Jewish Soul. I'm Ruth Guggenheim and I'll be your host as we explore together the whys and wonders of Judaism. Our guest this morning is Rabbi Ari Koretsky. Rabbi Koretsky is the Executive Director of Project Meor at the University of Maryland College Park. Good morning, Rabbi Koretsky. Are you there?
I am here. Good morning, Ruthie. Good morning, listeners.
Good morning. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know you are so busy with excellent programs at College Park and your own family. So, before we actually get talking about Project Meor, I was wondering if you could share with our listeners your own Jewish journey. I know you're from Baltimore, and you yourself got really turned on and inspired to get more involved Jewishly. How did that happen?
Right. I am from Baltimore. I grew up in Green Spring in the Pickwick housing neighborhood. My parents are still there, and I went to Beth Tefillah my entire life, my entire educational career from K through 12, which was a very rich experience. My parents invested heavily in my Jewish education. They themselves had come from a varied Jewish background. They had grown quite a bit themselves in terms of their Jewish observance, and I had my own odyssey of varying levels of observance and varying levels of Jewish inspiration. But by the time I was in high school, a combination of Beth Tefillah and heavy involvement in NCSY, which does a wonderful job in Baltimore, really gave me a sense and a heading that I wanted to intensify my own Jewish awareness and my own Jewish connection, and ultimately to be able to leverage that in a way that would help others coming from all sorts of backgrounds themselves.
Mm-hmm. So great. So tell us a little bit something. Project Meor, what does it actually stand for, the word?
Well, the word Meor means give light, to illuminate, really. And Meor is actually a national organization with 21 branches around the country. I'm managing the University of Maryland College Park branch, working with a phenomenal team of colleagues and professionals. We have 3 rabbis on the team, as well as 2 incredible female staff. And we just recently hired a director of institutional advancement as well, who is really helping us create more community awareness and bringing our profile into the broader community at large, both in the greater Washington area as well as Baltimore. Meor was conceived around 8-9 years ago. Really an incredible vision that allowed educators on campuses around the country to engage college students in a way that had not been taking place before. And that is through the prism of deep, sophisticated Jewish educational experiences. A lot of what is directed towards college students either is self-selecting Jewish education, that is, education for those who already are seeking it, or who already have an appreciation for it, or general sort of cultural Jewish offerings that would give students a chance to attend services or engage in some kind of large social event. But in terms of giving students who had not yet really had the opportunity for a meaningful and relevant Jewish education, giving them those tools and those inspiring messages, that really hadn't been taking place. And Meor, in such a short time, has done really an incredible job nationally in creating that kind of awareness and creating that kind of opportunity for students. There have been thousands of students now around the country who have gone through these various programs, whether it's a more formal program like the Maimonides program, trips to Israel, something less formal like one-on-one learning. We run a program called The Bar, which stands for Book a Rabbi. Shabbat meals that have, again, a social component and they certainly create a sense of community, but also give over educational messaging. All of those kinds of programming really has been groundbreaking from the college perspective.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know that Jay, right before GPS for the Jewish Soul, was interviewing a gentleman regarding the recent Pew studies, which came out a
Sure.
year ago. And there have been, there were a lot of earth-shattering statistics, in my opinion, but very little really seems to be done on a day-to-day basis, or it's just taking very long. There's a lot of think tanks. The Jewish community is very good at thinking through as opposed to just jumping in and doing something right away. And it seems like Meor and how you try to engage students, you're responding much more effectively. You're not taking the time to think it through. You're saying, we've got to get out there and do something now.
That's a great point, Ruthie. And I do think that we tend to overthink problems in the Jewish community. And I often feel like the solutions are somewhat intuitive. I will stress that there are no magic bullets by any means. Mm-hmm. Our desire and our yearning for some kind of sweeping solution, some kind of grand theory of everything that will tie together all Jewish problems and address all disaffection among the youth or whatever the concerns might be. There really isn't such a grand solution, at least none that I know of or none that can come about outside of a miraculous means. Every student, every person, every Jew is different, is individual, is unique, and perhaps is seeking something different, will respond to something different. And so global solutions are always going to be limited in impact. That said, I do agree with you that the more effective approach is to jump in the pool and start swimming, is to engage students in a very directed way, and to recognize and appreciate that students can and will respond to substantive, content-oriented opportunities if they are engaged in the appropriate way. And I guess at Meor we think of things in sort of a two-pronged approach, and that is the first being the critical importance of relationship building, that Judaism has to be personal, it has to be relationship peer-to-peer or mentor-to-peer oriented. People are searching for community, for family, for personal appreciation, for someone who gets them, and that's really critical. Although I am an Orthodox rabbi, there's a wonderful book written by Ron Wolfson, who I believe is a conservative rabbi, called Relational Judaism, and this has kind of become all the rage now. But the reality is, I think it's really quite intuitive that relational Judaism that is predicated on our engaging people as individuals and caring for them, being there for them, that has to be the foundation of any educational platform. Once a person has established trust, then we can move towards the next stage, and that is a substantive approach to Jewish engagement. Meor's primary distinguishing feature, when perhaps contrasted with other organizations, is that our focus is so heavily on education. Our goal is to get students thinking, questioning, challenging, recognizing that a Judaism that is not substance-based is ultimately a Judaism that is not likely to resonate with many very busy, very ambitious young Jewish people, and certainly not a Judaism that can then be transmitted to the next generation.
You say it so well. It's interesting because at Jews for Judaism, of course, we speak to a lot of individuals who are definitely on their Jewish journey, whether it's exploring why Judaism believes one way or even coming into the Jewish faith. And one of the things is that constantly people are saying that unless if they feel the content, like why is it that someone might have a PhD or is studying for a master's degree and yet their level of Jewish education might be a second or third grade comparable education? We undervalue the beauty of our own religious system and of our own content and material that we've given to the whole world, and yet the average Jew today knows less about our Jewish writings and scriptures than the average Gentile, to be honest, and it's a kind of sad statement. And so what I know Meor has been doing, and you've been there for many years, is really this educational program is phenomenal. Now, another question, are you seeing a huge change in the climate of Jewish students over the past 4, 5, 6 years? Do you see change on campus of, one, what they are looking for, and two, what might be happening vis-a-vis other students, perhaps anti-Jewish or Israel sentiments?
Sure. Just to address that point you made before, I do want to revisit it, and then I'll get to your latest question. There's no question that there's a significant disparity. I've started venturing a little bit now as well into adult education through some work I'm doing at Beth Shalom Synagogue in Potomac, the Center for Jewish Engagement there, and seeing that Jews of all ages and of all education levels are really seeking to understand their own heritage. And I really think that as an establishment, as a Jewish establishment, we often sell people really, really short by, the same people that are asking really difficult questions and engaging their professions or their majors for college students in a very intelligent and sophisticated way. They are then expected to be satisfied with a very elementary approach to Judaism that is strictly cultural or strictly, sort of traditional, so to speak. I put that in quotes, and not intellectually or even spiritually based. And I think we really do ourselves and ultimately everyone that we're reaching out to, we do them a disservice by not engaging them in that way. We can't be afraid of our own religion. We need to be proud of it. We need to be willing to engage people in it, willing to recognize that not everyone will ultimately come to the same conclusions, and be open to their questions and their challenges, but at the same time, at least be willing to put these ideas on the table and let people become educated consumers. As to your last question, the world is changing, not just Jewish college students. The world is becoming a much more distracted world. Even in the 10 years that I've been on campus, in that exact time span, we've witnessed the emergence of not only the Internet's increasingly prominent role in everything that we do, certainly myself included, but the translation or the focusing of these technologies into places like Twitter and Facebook, where these new mediums not only are tools for people, but really ultimately influence the way that people think, the time that people are able to concentrate for. It really is becoming a great challenge. People texting constantly and having a really difficult time just engaging ideas in a deep way. There's a lot of surface thinking that goes on nowadays. Getting people to think deeply is becoming more and more challenging, which, again, goes back to the really central importance of developing relationships with people so that people are willing and you earn the credibility to earn people's attention. Nowadays, we need to earn people's attention. We need to compete for people's critically scarce intellectual resources when they are barraged with so many other opportunities, so many other distractions.
Right, so are you seeing anything, certainly at the University of Maryland College Park, in terms of anti-Jewish or Israel sentiments? I know a lot of our listeners are all local, so we would love to know what or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would stress there are many, many Baltimore students at the University of Maryland. I believe the statistic is that the school is around 75% in-state as a whole, and that draws certainly from Baltimore, of course, some of the Jewish schools like Beth Tefillah, where I see many of my fellow alumni, but also, many of the public schools, Pikesville and Franklin, Owings Mills, and so forth. And yes, there certainly is an anti-Israel sentiment nationally on campuses. Maryland, thankfully, it's somewhat muted by the fact that the campus is so Jewish, but of course it's still there. There are the apartheid demonstrations. There are the general sense that one experiences on a liberal college campus that Israel really needs to fight for its sense of legitimacy. On some of our other campuses, it's been certainly more pronounced. I have a colleague at Emory, which is where the AE Pi fraternity chapter was defaced with swastikas. And so there are certainly campuses where there have been more overt displays of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias. But in many other campuses, certainly campuses perhaps that have larger Jewish populations, it still exists. Perhaps it's simmering a little bit more beneath the surface, but it emerges at crucial times that you see throughout the year.
So, we only have literally 1 minute left. I was wondering if you have any words of wisdom as a individual and a rabbi who talks to young adults day in and day out. What can parents do? In one sentence, what is it that we're missing, or what is it that we could do to encourage our kids in a proactive way to get more Jewishly involved and to engage in Jewish college outreach programs?
That's a great question. And again, parents often are in the most disadvantaged position, being that students today, want to, as always, like to chart their own course. Again, I'll come back to the really salient points that we emphasize, which are find engaging mentors that your children can build a relationship with, and then don't be afraid to allow them to engage the substance of Judaism. Allow them the opportunities to really think, even if they'll draw conclusions that are different from our own, allow them to recognize the beauty and the profound wisdom that is inherent in our thousands of years old tradition.
Excellent. Rabbi Koretsky, I'd love to thank you for the time. Unfortunately, we have run out of it. If somebody wanted to look up Meor, they would look at meor.com on the internet and get more information.
.org, Meor.org is our national website. MeorMD.org is our local iteration, which is actually currently undergoing a facelift. So the national website for now is probably the better bet. And feel free to contact me with any questions. I have colleagues on many campuses around the country. I'm happy to make referrals or to answer questions. I can be reached at Rabbi K, R-A-B-B-I-K, Rabbi K, at jterps.com. The letter J and T-E-R-P-S, like the Maryland Terps, jterps.com. I'd love to hear from any listeners.
Okay, and you'll hear back from us because you're a phenomenal speaker. Thank you so much, Rabbi Koretsky.
Thank you, Ruthie.
Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.